I wet the bed until I was 11. My parents sent me to my first year of sleepaway camp at the risk of wetting the bed. My first year. Imagine that. Sharing a room for 7 weeks with 12 mean and judgmental 10-year-olds who you just met. And every night you have a heart attack because you think you're gonna wet the bed. Waking up drenched in my sweat was always terrifying, but also a huge relief. Growing up, there would be times my bed remained dry for months. It gave me hope. False hope. Because then, let's play a quick game of are my sheets cold or wet? Audience, how many of you think my sheets are just a little bit chilly?
Yay!
Okay. And how many of you think my sheets are wet?
Yeah!
I'm glad to see you guys have a lot of faith in me. All right, let's go check. They're wet. It would be like this for a while. Wet, wet, wet. Until eventually, I stopped waking up to wetness. Oh, the euphoric feeling of waking up in the morning, expecting a dampness and failing to find any. This must have been when I first started puberty. No more unwanted wetness. Just kidding. October 29th, 2012. Hurricane Sandy. I remember the day like it was yesterday. No one in my town took it seriously. We've had false alarms about hurricanes in the past. But just in case, my family bought towels and sandbags to block the door. The local news that night called for low tide and a full moon. What are the odds? I'm standing at the top of my stairs, watching my mother and father slosh around in the feet of sewage water that claimed our home, trying to grab as many things as they could. My sister was there too, but she's a minor character in this story. I'm gonna pretend like I'm an only child in this flashback. Anyway, I wasn't allowed to help. I was 10. In the dark, smelly water, I see my favorite Hot Wheels set floating, pieces scattered. It was one of those 360-degree loop-de-loops. It was fucking awesome. Oh, and there goes my Lego haunted castle I completed just hours prior to the flooding. All my hard work gone to pieces. Literally. After rescuing everything we could, we retreated to our kitchen. Looking back, I'm beyond grateful that my kitchen was on the second floor. Hell, I'm glad we even had a second floor. Scented candles were spread throughout the house, mixing beautifully with the smell of sewage from downstairs. We played cards that night, and I lost every single game. It got pretty late, so I went to my room. I couldn't sleep that night. The sound of water from downstairs made me have to pee, so I refused to sleep. Wetting the bed was the last thing my parents needed. The next morning, I went to the beach with my mom. We marveled at the ocean. There was a dreariness and desolation in the air. How could something so stunning cause so much pain and destruction? A sinking feeling fell on the city like a plague. I remember seeing the words, "Pray for us," spray painted on a garage door. It was the door of my best friend's house. They weren't very religious people, but we were all desperate for a way out. How are we supposed to come back from this? This was a strange feeling for me. Not this sinking feeling, but this fear of the ocean. I've lived a 5-minute walk from the ocean my whole life, and I've been thrown around like a rag doll by the waves many times, but I never took it personally. I would get right back up and run right back into the water. The ocean was a natural force, and I knew it would never intentionally hurt anyone or anything. So then, why did I feel such fear and resentment? It wasn't exclusively the ocean that I loved. I loved water. I loved to swim competitively and was quite good at it. I loved floating on my back in a pool, feeling the warm sun on my wet skin. At my GAP program, we'd take day-long hikes in places that seemed like the trees were endless. But then, very faintly, I'd hear the sound of rushing water in the distance. I'd leave the group and find the source, Whether it was a waterfall, a stream, or a pond, I'd sit and listen to the water for hours, not moving a muscle. It was at these moments that I truly felt at peace. Even after Hurricane Sandy and after the ocean destroyed most of my town, I still loved water. I loved the feeling of it on my skin. I loved the sound of it splashing and splashing. Even when I felt like I could barely keep afloat with whatever was going on in my life, water calmed me down, ironically enough. And there have been many times in my life where I felt like I could not keep afloat, and this sinking feeling was nothing new. I felt inadequate, isolated, ignorant. I've had employers, teachers, and so-called friends make me feel this way. Hell, even I've made myself feel this way from time to time. But I never thought my school, a place where I'm supposed to learn and grow, would make me feel so stupid and low. I never thought my school would be the source of more unwanted wetness. I was so excited to have a single dorm for my junior year. I'd have the space and privacy for only myself. Except it wasn't for only myself. I had company. I had nosy neighbors who could never mind their own business, constantly putting themselves in my shoes when it never had to involve them. And on the worst days, too. After a long day of advanced vector calc and misinterpreting Western literature, all I wanted was a room to myself. Every day, cockroaches, they were always around. See, the fear became a part of my daily routine. Every time I'd walk home, every time I approached my door, my heart would pound. Anxiety medicine didn't cover this. At least Lexapro doesn't. And the thing is, cockroaches weren't even my biggest fear. If you were one of the many people I called to my dorm to kill a cockroach for me, this might come as a surprise to you. It might even sound like a lie. But word on the street was that my hall flooded. As I've explained quite thoroughly, I love water, but I'm aware of the destruction it could cause. I've seen it firsthand. I didn't want to experience that again. I found out about the flooding well before I was going to move into my dorm. I was originally supposed to live with my 3 other friends in an apartment-style dorm in East Village. Very adult of us, I know. It was supposed to have a kitchen and everything. I had the earliest time slot of the 4 of us, so the weight of choosing a room fell on my shoulders. My time slot was for 8:15 on a Tuesday. I had a jazz band performance at 8. No, that room's taken. Yes, so is that one. They're all taken. We had to think fast, so we all tried to get our own rooms. You found one? Where? Laurie's basement? I got it. It was a very stressful experience. I'm sure all of you are aware about the housing process. It sends shivers up my spine just thinking about it. Having a jazz band performance during my time slot did not help, but that wasn't my fault. I was high while choosing a room. That was my fault. But it's fine, we all got a room, didn't we? So, the cockroaches were my only concern. Until Halloween. I'm doing some last-minute homework because I try to get ahead when I can. But I hear this screaming outside of my door. I do not like disruptions, and I do not like loud noises, especially when I'm doing my homework. I understand that it's Halloween weekend, but it's 6 p.m. Why are we screaming at dinner time? So I investigate. I rehearse the stink I'll give the baby freshmen screaming like maniacs outside my door. But when I open my door, I'm punched in the face by the smell of sewage, and I'm instantly transported to the top of my steps, watching my parents slosh in the sewage water. My hall is flooding. The carpeted floor is soaked and my feet sink down a couple of inches. Ruined belongings are piling up outside of each doorway. Well, my room's not flooding, so technically this isn't my problem. The water is in my dorm. I run to each corner of my room, grabbing as many things as I can and throwing them on my bed. But where am I going to sleep? That's not important right now. My sister's bucket hat from Spain is completely drenched. She's going to kill me. My computer charger is most definitely broken. They promised my room wouldn't flood. I still went to Halloween that night. I was young. My friends let me sleep over at their house, and for a little while, I forgot about the flooding and the state of my dorm. The sinking feeling vanished. After many meetings, tears, and emails, I got myself assigned to a new dorm. A freshman dorm, but it was still a single. They gave me my keys, and I figured I'd check it out. My room is huge. I have 2 sets of furniture and so much floor space. I can alternate between beds if I wanted to. Oh, and imagine the floor time I'll have. But I can't get too comfortable. I'm to move out at the end of the semester. I'm in an RA space, or so I've been told. I'm pretty sure the RA lives down the hall, but I didn't question it. I have a new room and it's huge. I should be grateful, not skeptical. It turns out the RA did live down the hall. That wasn't clear to anyone else. RA, I'm locked out. RA, I threw up. RA, there's a random naked girl sitting on the bathroom floor. These are all things that have been said to me. And for some reason, I'd answer the door every time. In my long shirt, no bra, no underwear, just vibes. My eyes would be blazing red from you know what. But I just let them think I was crying. I'm a very sensitive person. I didn't get it. Why did they think I was the RA? I had no decorations on my door, not even my name. Right. I was the only junior living in an all-freshman dorm. Glassell Castle. I know. So the semester wraps up, and I finished packing my things just as soon as I finished unpacking them. I was already assigned my new room in Bellingrad. No one reported any flooding, so things were looking up for me. Sorry, hold on. Hello? This is she. Uh-huh. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks. My car was broken into. On campus. I remember when I received that phone call. I was watching Warrior Nun Season 2. It wasn't even that good of a show, but I'm a stand for any form of media with queer representation. It was 11:40 p.m. I figured I'd try calling my parents before I went to the parking lot where my car was parked. My mom was in Florida with her lady friends. She didn't answer, which made sense. It was hours past her 8 p.m. bedtime. My father, who was in Las Vegas with his college friends, did answer. But it was loud and crowded where he was, and I didn't want to ruin his night. I told him my butt dialed in, and I'd just tell him in the morning. So I ran to the frat lot where my car was parked, and I found a Campo officer leaning on my car. My window was smashed, but luckily nothing was taken except for my USB port. I thought for sure that they would have taken the cardboard cross that was in my armrest, because I just assumed that's how the South was. But looking back, it would be pretty ironic to take a cross from the armrest of a car that you've broken into and were attempting to steal. So I turned to the council officer and I said, what can be done to prevent this in the future? And he turns to me and he says, oh, this kind of thing just happens. On campus? I was so fucking mad, but all I could think to say was, oh. So, I gave my information to the police officer who came minutes later and left. The sinking feeling returned. That's that winter break I went to Israel on birthright. A free trip to Israel. Any Jew would love that. I just made a joke about Jewish people being cheap. That does not give any of you the right to make that joke. Except for my Hillel people in the audience. Anyway, I explored my Jewish identity, admired the beauty of Israel, and I met some amazing people. It was a great experience. I had not a worry on my mind. I returned to Memphis in high spirits. I went to campus safety to retrieve my new room key, and I went to my room, which was on the 3rd floor, with no elevator. Lugged my suitcase upstairs. Not letting this ruin my mood. I needed a bit of exercise anyway. So I approached my door, and I prepared to see my new room. My room is the size of a closet. My bed is in the center of the room for some reason. There's some kind of blockage preventing me from resting it against any of the 4 walls. A window, a closet, a sink, a doorway. My desk is underneath my bed for some reason, and my bags are piled on top of each other, reaching all the way to the ceiling. That's not an exaggeration. There is simply nowhere else to put them. So I got to work. I started unpacking my things, and I think I pulled nearly every muscle in my body while doing so. I forgot to lift with my legs, not my back. I sweat from places I didn't even know I would sweat from, and that's all I'll say about that. But after many tiring hours, I finished unpacking and I set up my new room. You know, I kind of liked my room. It was cute. It was a place I could learn to love, maybe even call it home. Just kidding. It's 3 a.m. on April 3rd, and I was planning on waking up just a few hours later to catch my flight home for Easter break. Then I wake up to this drip, drip, dripping sound. Oh,
Nothing. I'm just gonna go back to sleep.
just kidding. I needed to find the source of that dripping. It would drive me insane until I did. And then I see it. My ceiling is leaking. Now, before calling campus safety, I made sure that this was considered an emergency. That's what the website told me to do before calling in the middle of the night. But there was no section that indicated whether a leaky ceiling was an emergency or not. So I called just in case. Hi, yeah, sorry to call at this hour, and I'm not sure if this is an emergency, but my ceiling is leaking. Fast. Oh, honey, that is definitely an emergency. You just sit tight and we will send someone right over. That was the first time my feelings about unwanted wetness were validated. And it felt good. But weird.
I'm here about a leaky ceiling.
His walkie-talkie was blaring. Yeah, it's right in there, but can you just lower your walkie-talkie? I really don't want to wake anyone.
Wow, that's coming in fast.
Yeah, I know.
Well, there's nothing we can do until 7. Why didn't you call one of your friends and sleep over at their house?
I have really good friends, don't get me wrong, but I don't think any of them cuddle their phone at night, anticipating a call from me at 3:30 in the morning. So after the extremely helpful camp officer left, I put down a tarp to catch the water, got back into bed, and let the soothing sound of dripping put me to sleep. Luckily, wetting the bed wasn't a problem anymore. Or so I thought. I'm just kidding. So I fly home, say hello to my family, and I call campus safety. Yep, the issue's all sorted out. Your room is clean and dry. We're working on finding a permanent solution. That was great news! That got me through the rest of break without a single concern or doubt. That happiness would soon fade. Because a week later, my ceiling leaked again. Except, I didn't call campus safety. I didn't have the time. I had class, then I had to give a tour, then I had another class, then another class, then I had to do my homework, and then I had RAB. There was no time for a leaky ceiling in my schedule. The next few weeks were looking up. My room remained dry. Even though I had to get rid of all my posters and decorations because the water destroyed them, my room was still cozy. It wasn't home, but it was good enough. I'm giving my last tour of the semester in late April. It's a rainy day, but I had a really fun and patient group of parents. When I dropped them back off at Burrow, I strutted back to my dorm. Took my wet shoes off in the hall so as not to track in any water or mud. My ceiling is leaking again. Something in me at that moment just snapped. I ran to the president's office and she's not here? Well, can I leave a message? So I walked back to my dorm, my face wet from the tears and my rain. Excuse me, the rain and my tears. I got back to my dorm and I called the physical plant where 2 workers assessed my room. While they were doing that, I called my mom, crying. There was nothing she could do, but I just wanted someone to listen. It seemed like no one actually heard or cared about what I was saying, because if they did, then why was this still happening? After I hung up with my mom, one of the physical plant workers came out into the hallway to tell me about my room. He said that there were leaves clogging the gutter on the roof, and that's why water kept leaking into my room. But first of all, that didn't really make any sense to me, and second of all, I did not care. Don't get me wrong, the physical plant workers, very nice people, but they're always just telling you the problem and not the solution. But after noticing my eyes were red and teary from crying, he changed the topic completely. He started telling me about his family. He was telling me how they're in Egypt visiting their daughter who works in Cairo at a bank. They were taking a riverboat tour on the Nile. He said that he was really happy he didn't go because he hates long plane rides, but he also misses his family, and it would have been really nice to see his daughter. You know, I didn't give a flying fuck about what he was saying to me. I just wanted my ceiling to stop leaking. But after listening to him talk for a little bit, I felt my heart beat slow and I was calmer. It reminded me of my grandfather, and eventually I was happily listening to him talk. This man, who doesn't know me at all, decided to be open and honest with me, told me about his family. He wasn't telling me this because he wanted me to know. He was telling me this because he knew it would calm me down. He's a father and a grandfather, and he knows how to deal with situations like this. So, after the physical plant workers left, I couldn't bring myself to go to the library to do any work. A friend let me camp out in their dorm while I called my mom and I waited for Res Life to assign me to a new dorm. I will say, they were pretty quick to get back to me. They were probably expecting an email from me sooner or later. My new room was on the 2nd floor of Bellingrad, so no leaky ceiling and no flooding. My new room was also huge, but I didn't get the same wave of excitement that I got when I moved into Glassell.
I thought you'd say that.
I was tired and angry. I didn't want to move again. The semester was over. It was finals week. I didn't even bother unpacking my things. This room felt more like a hotel room than anything. Certainly not a place I could call home. But for the next 6 days, my room remained clean and dry, and that was good enough for me. That summer, I was in Dublin for an internship, and I stayed on the University College Dublin campus. I had a room and bathroom to myself, and it was really nice not having to share a communal bathroom with 13 other people living on my floor. I remember finding it really strange that I didn't have to move out of the room after 2 weeks because it was flooding. It was dry, and the room was mine. It definitely took some getting used to. That summer, I also reached out to the vice president. I was trying to get reimbursed, or at least partially. At first, it seemed really promising. She seemed like she really wanted to help, and that she really felt bad. I showed her the emails where ResLife assured me that my room would not flood. She said that she'd get back to me in mid-June with some updates. This was in May. So, late May passes, then early June, then mid-June, then late June, then early July, and then in mid-July, I email her and I say, "Hey lady, what's up?" No, I say, "Do you have any updates for me?" And about a week later, she emails me back and says, "I'm on vacation, but I'm emailing you back now because I didn't want to waste any more of your time." Thank you! I can really tell that you care about wasting my time. Anyway, she said there was nothing she could do. This was discouraging, but I decided I'd take further action once I was back on campus in August. I would reach out to the president, the same one who didn't get back to me the first time. So, in early September, I get a meeting with the president. It's not one that we scheduled together, though. I signed up for her office hours on the website. When I get there, she's waiting for me outside her office with a big smile on her face and her hand out for me to shake. I wasn't in the mood for pleasantries, though. That would have been more appropriate 3 months ago. But my mom told me to remain calm. Getting upset or angry would only worsen the situation. So I follow her into her office, and I sit down at a table across from her. I tell her the full story, spanning from sophomore year to the present. She seems like she's really listening. She's not taking notes, but she is nodding, and she's reacting to upsetting moments. When I finish, we look at each other for a few seconds, and then she says to me, "Do you want to be a lawyer? You are great at making your argument." It was at this moment I knew that I was not being taken seriously, and I would walk out empty-handed. The sinking feeling returned. You know, I didn't expect ResLife or the president to kiss my feet or cry on my behalf, but I did expect them to care. Rhodes College is a small school. Each of the professors know their students' names and interests, and the student body knows each other pretty well. If not on a personal level, then at least by each other's faces. That's why I thought that if the school heard about a student who was relocated 3 separate times, they would at least show a little sympathy or compassion. I was sorely mistaken. I'm a tour guide, and a question I'm asked a lot is how housing is at Rhodes. And at these moments, I want to sit down my entire tour and tell them how inconsiderate school can be. But I don't. I like being a tour guide, and I like my school. I like my professors, my classes, my friends, and I love Memphis. I wasn't going to let this terrible, lengthy experience define the entire institution. At the inauguration, the president said that she'd make a real effort to improve the dorms, including Glassell Castle, which she called by that name. So, unless in 20 years you're calling me for donations that will be used to fix the flooding and leaking problem in the dorms, you're not getting a single fucking penny from me. Don't even bother calling. Thank you. About my junior year in housing. I hope that none of you will ever have to go through something like that.
I really, really do. For the audience's sake, I really did not get into the emotions that I felt and the things that I said. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so, so much for coming. I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys have a really good weekend.
Thank you.